The movie begins in 2005 with David Pacadus, a 22-year-old living in Miami and working as a licensed massage therapist. He's tired of earning a living by massaging wealthy older men. After dropping out of college after one semester, having a fallout with his parents and quitting or getting fired from 6 different jobs, his career options are limited. David spent his savings on high-quality bedsheets to sell to retirement homes, but this venture failed since the owners are not interested in improving the quality of life for the elderly. One afternoon at a funeral, he reconnects with Ephraim Diveroli, his best friend from school, whom he hasn't seen in years. Ephraim had been living in LA working with his uncle in the arms dealing business. After his uncle stole money from him, Ephraim quit and moved to Miami to start his own business, AEI. While hanging out, they stopped to buy pot, but some thugs trick Ephraim out of his money. In retaliation, Ephraim grabs a machine gun from his car trunk and fires into the sky, scaring everyone away. David, tired of being pushed around, is impressed by Ephraim's boldness. The next day, David visits Ephraim in his office and gains more respect for him as he watches Ephraim impersonate an army officer to gather information on competitors' contracts. Ephraim explains that he sells not only online but also to the US government, earning a good income. As friends, Ephraim offers to show David the ropes. Ephraim reveals a government website listing all military contracts open for bidding. He avoids the big contracts that large companies compete for and focuses on smaller contracts that are still worth millions when dealing with the Pentagon. After having lunch with Ephraim, David returns home to discover his wife Iz is pregnant. Panicked about providing for a baby, David considers Ephraim's job offer. Initially, David is hesitant due to their anti-war stance, but Ephraim convinces him that working with him doesn't mean supporting the war. David accepts but tells Iz they will be selling sheets to the army, not weapons, gaining her full support. David spends the next 6 weeks learning about the arms dealing business, searching the government's website for overlooked deals, and contacting weapon manufacturers in Eastern Europe. They refer to themselves as war dogs, bottom feeders profiting from war without entering the battlefield. Ephraim has a silent partner, Ralph Slutsky, a businessman who owns 14 dry cleaners in Miami. Ralph provides funding in exchange for what he believes is a 25% share of the company. However, Ralph is deceived not only about the profits but also about their true intentions. He believes Ephraim, like himself, is an observant Jew wanting to protect Israel, unaware that they sell to all sides of the conflict. As David spends more time in the arms business, he becomes increasingly proficient and even connects with Henry Girard, a top supplier to both sides of the conflict for the past 20 years. One night, after Ephraim gets punched at a bar for hitting on the wrong girl, they head to a diner. There, they receive a call confirming they've secured the Beretta deal, which involves supplying thousands of Beretta pistols to the Iraqi police in Baghdad. A few days later, David and his wife, Iz, are at the doctor's office, viewing an ultrasound of their baby and discovering they are having a girl. Their moment is interrupted by a call from Captain Philip Santos, concerned about new legislation banning arms shipments to Iraq from Italy, where the Beretta pistols are sourced. Unaware of this law, David lies, assuring Santos that everything is under control. Fortunately, Ephraim devises a plan: ship the pistols from Italy to Jordan, a neutral country, and then from Jordan to Iraq. That night at a dinner party, some of Iz's friends warned David about Ephraim, claiming he was the one who stole money from his uncle, not the other way around. Ephraim arrives uninvited, feeling slighted. He pulls David aside to discuss an urgent issue. Gang and Customs have seized their guns. Captain Santos, aware of this, calls them, demanding an explanation and threatening to cancel their contract, which would blacklist their company. Iz overhears the conversation, realizes David is an arms dealer, and feels betrayed. David has no time to address the issue with Iz, as he and Ephraim must fly to Jordan immediately. There, they receive no help from the embassy because their flying permission has expired. They bribe locals to release their cargo and hire Marlboro, a top smuggler, to drive them to Iraq to deliver the guns. Despite David's safety concerns, Ephraim assures him the trip will be quick. At the Iraqi border, Marlboro bribes the patrols with cigarettes, claiming that's their cargo, and they cross without trouble. David and Ephraim fall asleep and wake up at an abandoned gas station. While Marlboro refills the gas can, Ephraim takes a leak. David gets a call from Iz. She tells him she understands the pressure he's under and just wants him to promise never to lie to her again. David agrees, though he lies about being at a hotel. Suddenly, David sees armed insurgents approaching. He warns Ephraim, who quickly gets back in the truck. They start the truck with a few drops of gas left, but it won't last long. They can't wait for Marlboro, so he runs after them and jumps into the truck to fill the tank as they drive. The insurgents start shooting at them, and for a moment, the trio thinks they won't make it. However, they are saved by the sudden arrival of the American army, which scares the insurgents away. They reach the military base without further issues, impressing Captain Santos by surviving the Triangle of Death. After taking selfies with the cargo, they get paid and are escorted to the airport by soldiers to safely leave Baghdad. This deal earns them a significant profit and puts their company on the map, leading to exponential growth and increasing their monthly earnings. They buy matching Porsches, 2 apartments in the same building, and even burn all the bulk sheets David had bought. Ralph is so pleased with his returns that he increases his investments, enabling them to expand the company and hire numerous employees to find more deals. This gives David more time to spend with his newborn baby, although Ephraim seems to become more unstable by the day. One night, David discovers a massive order from the army, later known as the Afghan deal, which includes items like 100 million rounds of AK-47 ammunition. Seeing this as a fantastic opportunity, they travel to Nevada for Vegas X, a convention showcasing the latest in warfare technology. Unfortunately, the convention is a disaster. Coordinating such a massive deal is a logistical nightmare for their small company. Later, while David is playing cards at a casino to distract himself from their failure, he is approached by Henry Gerard, a legendary arms dealer. David retrieves Ephraim, and they meet Henry at a restaurant to discuss the deal. Henry explains that he can fulfill the entire order through contacts in Albania, which has stockpiled weapons for decades in anticipation of a Western invasion that never came. Henry can acquire these weapons cheaply, and he is the only agent with access to the entire stockpile. Skeptical, Ephraim asks why Henry isn't bidding on the deal himself. Henry reveals he is barred from doing business with the US government because he's on a terror watch list. This worries David, but Ephraim points out they've been dealing with similar people all along. They decide to accept the deal. A few days later, they fly to Albania to inspect the cargo and are assigned a driver named Bashkim. At the warehouse, they test the bullets and confirm they still work despite their age. They return to Miami and submit their bid. 5 months later, they are informed they won the deal. However, before starting, their company must be vetted by the government. David and Ephraim begin forging all the necessary paperwork and bookkeeping. 2 weeks later, they meet procurement officers from the US military in Rock Island. Nervous, they smoke strong pot before the meeting. Despite this, the meeting goes well, and their paperwork is approved. Ephraim, however, is furious to learn they were chosen because they underbid the competition, meaning they could have charged over $50 million more. When David tells Eyes he'll be leaving for Albania for a month, she takes it better than expected. However, she soon reveals she's leaving for his mother's house with the baby, having discovered photos of David in Iraq, proving he has been lying to her again. Trying to calm her down, David promises Eyes that was the last lie, but she reveals she knows about another. Bags of money he hid under the sink. Realizing he can't stop lying, Eyes leaves with the baby. Before flying to Albania, Ephraim gives David a gold grenade as thanks for his sacrifices for the company. David presents a partnership agreement for them to sign, aiming for better control. After signing, David stores it in his desk drawer, though Ephraim seems displeased. In Albania, David is assigned Bashkim as his driver again. He tries calling Eyes, but she won't answer. While preparing the cargo, David discovers the bullets are Chinese, making them illegal due to a US embargo. David informs Ephraim, and together they call Henry, who bluntly says it's their problem now. They should have checked each crate before buying. Stuck in Albania, David attempts to find new suppliers from Eastern Europe. A few days later, Ephraim arrives at his hotel with a solution. They could repackage the bullets. Without original crates, the US won't know their origin, and using fiberboard boxes will save on shipping costs. Though illegal, the potential profit is too tempting. Bashkim introduces them to his friend Enver, who owns a packing company. They don't mention the Chinese issue, just that they want to reduce the cargo's weight. Enver agrees to do it for $100,000, a small price to save the deal and make an extra $3 million. On December 8, 2007, they deliver the first 5 million rounds to the Afghan army without any issues. During Christmas, Eyes allows David to see the baby via video call, a last positive event before things go wrong. That night, Ephraim calls from the USA, angry about Henry charging a 400% markup. He wants Henry out of the deal for ripping them off. David tries to stop him, warning that Henry is not someone to cross and that they are already making huge profits. David points out his hard work in Albania, away from his family, while Ephraim is comfortable in the USA. This makes him feel more like an overworked employee than a partner. Ephraim promises not to act, but secretly steals the signed agreement from David's desk. Ephraim doesn't keep his word, and a few days into 2008, David is kidnapped from his apartment. Taken to an abandoned plot, he is beaten by 2 thugs, while Henry threatens him with a gun, warning him not to cut him out of the deal before leaving. Terrified, David decides to return to Miami and heads to the warehouse to gather his things. Enver confronts him about not being paid and reveals he knows the real reason for repacking the ammo. Enver is also angry because Ephraim hasn't been answering his calls. David promises to wire the money once he's back in the US and assures Enver he'll return in a week. As David is getting into a taxi, Bashkim's wife approaches him, telling him her husband has disappeared and hasn't been heard from since. His body has never been found, convincing David never to return to Albania. Upon arriving in Miami, David goes to see Eyes, confessing all the illegal activities he's been involved in with the company. She takes him back when he promises to quit arms dealing and return to being a massage therapist. Next, David confronts Ephraim, tells him he's quitting and demands his share of the deal. Ephraim feels betrayed and refuses to pay even after David threatens to get a lawyer involved. Ephraim isn't worried because he's destroyed the only copy of their signed agreement. Infuriated, David throws the gold grenade at the window between their offices, making a scene before leaving. 3 months later, David has resumed his life as a massage therapist. One afternoon, Ralph approaches him, saying Ephraim feels bad about what happened and wants to reconcile. They meet at a diner, where Ephraim apologizes and offers David $200,000, which David finds insulting. David angrily reveals to Ralph all the illegal activities they engaged in using his funding and how they've been underpaying him. He mentions he has proof on his laptop that could incriminate Ephraim. Ephraim remains unconcerned, knowing that implicating him would also implicate David since his name is on all the paperwork. The meeting ends without a resolution. Shortly afterward, David receives a call from the New York Times about the repacked Chinese ammo. He feigns ignorance and hangs up, but he's now worried because the information is out there. After promising Eyes he'll consult a lawyer, he encounters Ephraim in the elevator, who also received a call from the journalist. Ephraim tries to appeal to their old friendship, but David sees through it and punches him, realizing they were never truly friends. He was just a pawn to Ephraim. When the elevator doors open on the first floor, they are surrounded by the FBI and immediately arrested. Of all their illegal activities and lies to the government, the mistake that got them caught was not paying Enver, who reported them to the Pentagon. The government launched an investigation that resulted in Ralph being busted at one of his shops. Scared, Ralph quickly made a deal and wore a wire to record their confessions during the diner meeting. Ephraim is charged with over 70 federal crimes and sentenced to 4 years in prison, while David pleads guilty and receives 7 months of house arrest. In 2022, ADI will be eligible for federal contracts again. After his house arrest, David returns to work as a massage therapist and is surprised when his next client is Henry. David is initially scared, but Henry reassures him that if he wanted David dead, he would already be dead. Henry apologizes for the events in Albania, claiming he had bad information and thanks David for not mentioning him in the testimony. David has questions for Henry, including whether their meeting at the blackjack table was a coincidence and what happened to Bashkim. Instead of answering, Henry offers David a suitcase full of money in exchange for his silence. Make sure to subscribe for more recaps like this.